I want to welcome everybody to tonight's class tonight. This class is part of our in-depth grant writing workshop. The in-depth writing workshop is a total of 8 lessons. It's designed for those that want to take their grant writing skills to the next level. Let's bring in the students and we'll get started.
Hello.
But this is the level of professionalism that we nonprofits. Hello.
Hi.
I hope all is going well.
Yes, it is. Thank
Good.
you.
So tonight I'm going to record this class, and I'm going to be recording every class hereafter. So that way, if you say, Mike, I remember that class I took 4 weeks ago, but I don't remember. Can I get a copy of that recording? So it's going to be, you're going to have a library of webinars related to this class.
Okay, that's nice. Give me just 1 second because I'm in a different room and it might be loud, but I want to make sure we don't.
Go ahead, take your time.
Okay.
That's the ability of having your own tailored class.
I know it. I'm so fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. You what I call a change agent. You're taking it to the professional level. So tonight's class is going to be on lesson 4, the evaluation section. You remember we had 3 lessons that we've gone over so far. So can you give me the subject areas that we covered so far?
Yes. 1.
And don't worry about it. It's not a pass or fail test.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I didn't have my.
That's okay. Let me just highlight what we're going over. And of course, as soon as I say it, it's going to bam, pop right in your mind. The first thing we talked about was a statement of the problem. This is where we begin to talk about how do we do the research, both quantitative and qualitative research, to bring about a statement of the problem. We went in depth about the statement of the problem because we talked about, we had to not only talk about what the problem is, but we also had to talk about best practice and lessons learned on how to solve the problem. The second thing we talked about was goals and objectives and strategies and tactics and processes and things of that nature. And then we talked about program design. And in program design, we talked about the different strategies that we have to put together in order to do the program. So now we're going from those 3 areas, and tonight we're going to talk about the evaluation. Once we got our program started, and we talked about all those key components that you have to have in order to complete a program design, once you got that program design, now you have to do an evaluation. What an evaluation is that you have to tell the funders, how do we know when we're successful? Okay, give me a second. Excellent. So let me, I'm trying to hide this thing right here so it won't be in my face. Give me 1 second while. No, it's not going to let me do that. Now, as you can see on your screen, it talks about program evaluation. It talks about the different types of program evaluation. Hold on, this thing right here is in my face and I can't really, here we go. Excuse me. Okay, so good. Now we see everything. So I want you to read the first paragraph as to what a programmed evaluation is.
Program evaluation is carefully collecting necessary decisions about the program. Verify that you are doing what you think you're doing.
Okay, see how important it is? You can say all day long about how good your program is, but you got to verify it. There are several types of evaluations. One is called a goal-based evaluation. Goal-based evaluations are evaluating the extent to which the program of meeting the predetermined goals or objectives. Another type is called process evaluation. The process-based evaluation are generated or geared towards fully understanding how the program works. How does it produce the results that you say you're going to produce? And then you have what's known as outcome-based evaluation. An outcome-based evaluation facilitates your understanding of it facilitates your understanding if your organization is really doing the right program activities to bring about the outcome that you believe to be needed by your clients. For each outcome, specify what observable measures or indicators you're going to use in order to show that you're reaching your particular objective. So when you have to specify a target goal of client first, you have to determine what number or percent of clients you commit to achieving a specific outcome. For example, can be the outcome is to increase self-reliance, which is the outcome. And you can say 75% of African American women living in the city of Minnesota, as evidence-based by the following measures, indicators, identify what information is needed to these indicators. Now, I really messed that up. Let me give a summary of this right here. I shouldn't have been reading it from word to word, first of all. So basically what they're saying is that if you say you're going to reach a particular goal, and if that goal is, for example, to have African-American self-reliance, now you have to show, well, how many? Well, we're going to do 70% of those African-Americans living in the city of Minnesota. You have to talk about your indicators. What are you going to use to indicate that your clients are actually getting what they need? In other words, you want to identify what information is needed to show these indicators. For example, you need to know how many clients in the target group went through the program, how many reliable undertook their own transportation to work and stayed off of drugs. These are the indicators that you're trying to bring about. Now, I kind of messed that up. So as we go forward, I can straighten that out. Performance measurements. Performance measurement is the ongoing monitoring and reporting of programs' accomplishments, specifically progress towards your pre-established goals. It is typically conducted by a program manager that's in your organization. A program may be any activity, project, function, or policy that has an identifiable purpose or set of objectives. That's what a program is. It's an activity, a project, a function, but we have to be able to evaluate whether or not that program is working. Program evaluations are individual systematic studies conducted periodically or on an ad hoc basis to assess how well a program is doing. They are often conducted by experts external to the program, but in most cases, you can do your own program evaluation. A program evaluation typically examine achievements of program objectives and the contents of other aspects of program performance or in the context to which it occurred. That's why you're taking this particular part of the class so you can do your own program evaluation. Because if you bring somebody from the outside to do your program evaluation, it can run into the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. So there are four main types to be identified, all of which measure program performance. Let's talk about what they are. The first type of program evaluation is called process or implementation evaluation. We're going to talk more about this when we go to our theory of change. That's one form of evaluation. This form of evaluation assesses the extent to which a program is operating as it was intended. It typically assesses the program activities' conformance to statutory and regulatory requirements, program design, or professional standards or customers' expectation. What's most important here is program design as it relates to this class. The next type of evaluation is called outcome evaluation. This form of evaluation assesses the extent to which a program achieves its outcome-oriented objective. It's focused on output and outcomes, including unintended effects, to judge the program effectiveness, but may also assess program process to understand the outcome or that are being produced. Let me go back to this term outputs. When we use the word outputs, we're talking about the numbers of people that you're going to serve. We're going to learn more about this in more detail as we move along in the presentation. The next type of an evaluation is called impact evaluation. Impact evaluation is a form of outcome evaluation that assesses the net effect of the program by comparing your program outcomes with an estimate of what would happen in the absence of the program. This is one of the most important evaluation tools because you're making an argument to the funder, hey, here's what happened if we didn't have an impact. For example, if your focus is teenage pregnancy, and your argument is going to be, here is what would happen if we didn't have a teenage pregnancy program. And you're going to show that tens of thousands of young females, teen females, are getting pregnant every year. Without your program, those numbers every year will multiply. So you want to show your impact evaluation. Okay. Now, for some reason I want to sneeze tonight. Hold on one second. Okay, it didn't come out. The next thing is cost benefit and cost effectiveness analysis. The analysts compare a program output or outcome with the cost of resources expanded to produce them. When applied to an existing program, they are also considered a form of program evaluation. Cost effectiveness analysts assess the cost of meeting a single goal objective and can be used to identify the least cost alternative to meet that goal. Cost benefit analysts aim to identify all of the relevant costs and benefits, usually in terms of dollars. These two right here, analysts, are very important because it always comes down to the dollar. A funder going to ask you, okay, if you charging me $1,000 per client, show me the cost benefit that I get, and then show me the cost effectiveness as well as the benefit. One type of way of showing your evaluation is called a logic model. A logic model is what we call an outcome-based evaluation. Let's look at what are the different components that a logic model consists of. It's a matrix system. Let's look at this logic model. As you can see, it's broken down to different categories. The first category is the problem. This is where you begin to talk about what is the general need or issue that you want to solve. And then you're going to have what's known as sub-problems. You're going to break down your major problem into sub-problems. For example, let's say you're dealing with juvenile delinquency. Well, one problem might be that the young person is not going to school. Another problem might be that the young person is prone to get into trouble. Another problem might be that the young person needs a mentor. So these will be sub-problems of the major problem. From your sub-problem comes your objectives. Now keep in mind, from your problem comes your goals. From your sub-problem comes your objective. And we're going to talk later about what objectives are. Now, the next section is activities. Here's where you begin to talk about what you're going to do. What are the activities you're going to do? Let's say, for example, if we're doing a mentor program, here you're going to talk about your activities. Well, we're going to assign each at-risk youth to a mentor. Then you're going to talk about the next section is your outcome measures. How are you going to measure your outcomes? Your outputs, your output measures. How are you going to measure it? When we say output, what we're talking about is numbers. Here is where you quantify your activity. For example, you talk about how many sections you're going to do, how many people you're going to service. So the output goes to the how many. It begins to quantify those activities in terms of what percent, how many, those numbers that you can actually quantify. Once you identify your output, the next is your outcome measures. Your outcome measures start with your short term. Your short-term measures might be, what do you plan to do within the first 30 days of that person coming to your program? Now, you should also have midterms outcomes as well, but they don't have it here. But the next outcome here is your long-term outcome. This is the longer-term outcome, usually of the community or the target population. This could be anywhere 1 year, 2 years, 3 years out. Any questions related to a logic model?
No.
Excellent. Let's look at another logic model. This is dealing with prevention. In a logic model, you always set what your goal is. In this case, the goal is to reduce the risk of teenage pregnancies among at-risk girls between the ages of 10 and 14 by providing a pregnancy prevention educational program. The first thing you're going to deal with is the what. And the what is called a process objective. In this case, they're going to provide a program of teenage pregnancy education and teenage prevention to at-risk girls. This is the what, the process objective. The activities, or the how, which is the activity, is provide 6 to 7 educational groups for 12 weeks to reach 100 girls in the target population. Also, when you're dealing with the how, you're going to say you're going to provide handouts and pictures. And finally, you're going to show videos regarding pregnancy. The next section is the who, the responsible parties. Here, in this case, it's going to be this group and group leaders. Next is the expected outcome. This goes to the why. In this case, 80% of girls reported increased knowledge of sexual consent. Whatever that means, they define it that way. And then they say 100% of the girls competing 80% of the program will become pregnant, who will not become pregnant while enrolled in the program. So that expected outcome is A, these girls, while they taking our program, will not get pregnant. The other thing is that 80% of the girls will report an increased knowledge related to why they shouldn't get pregnant and the choices they can make in that particular respect. And then we move over to your indicators, the evidence. Evidence measurements. What is the evidence you had to support your argument? Well, we're going to use pre and post knowledge GED test scores. We're going to question, we're going to do another question is, how would you measure an outcome like this? So you have to deal with your measurement indicators related to evidence. And they ask, how would you measure your outcome? In this case, your pre-test. You're going to give somebody a pre-test, and then you're going to give somebody a post-test. And that's how you're going to be able to measure whether or not the person is progressing. The assumption is when he took that first test, that pre-test, probably didn't score well. But after coming to your class and taking your training, that next test, or what we call the post-test, should show that he knows something. The next thing is the data source, the where. Where are the data to support your program? And here they say it's going to be survey documents and data files. And you go to these files, then it support what's going on in the program. That goes to data source. That goes to the where. And the next is the time of measurements. This deals with how long something is going to happen. This deals like with the beginning to the end. Normally, you want to have a definite time. For example, within 1 year, within 6 months. You want to definitely have a perspective on the time. Any questions related to logic models so far? Excellent.
No questions.
Okay. To accomplish an outcome-based evaluation, that's what we was just talking about, you should first plot or test your evaluation with a group of people first. And these are the different steps you should take. First thing you want to do, identify the major outcomes that you want to examine or verify for the program under evaluation. You might reflect on your mission. Everything has to come from the mission, like the vision. The overall purpose of your organization. And ask yourself, what impact will you have on your clients as you work towards your mission? That goes back to the question of impact. For example, if your overall mission is to provide shelter or resources to a abused woman, then ask yourself what benefits this will have on those women if you effectively provide them with shelters and other social services. So what would be some of the benefits? What do you think some of the benefits would be? Well, first, the person gonna have some place to live. And second, they're gonna be connected to other social services. Now let's go to number 2 in terms of the different steps of creating an outcome-based evaluation. Again, the first step is to identify the major outcome that you want to accomplish. Okay, part of the major activities we are doing now. Talk about that. Now, the second thing that you want to have part of your steps is choose the outcome that you want to examine. Make sure you prioritize the outcome. And if your time and resources are limited, pick the top 2 to the 4 most important outcomes that you want to examine for now. Sometimes you can have 10, 15 different objectives, 15 different objectives and 15 different outcomes. Try to narrow it down to the first 2 or the 4 and prioritize those that are most important. Second, for each outcome, specify what observable measures or indicators will suggest that you are achieving the key outcomes with your clients. This is often the most important and enlightening steps in an outcome-based evaluation. Okay, so those are the 3 steps. Now, it can be challenging in trying to put these things together. Sometimes it's kind of hard to be able to put it into tangible things that you've done. For example, if you help a guy getting off of drugs, well, how do you explain that? As what is important of that outcome? Well, the tangible things that you can't feel is now that man can live a better quality of life. That man's got his job now. That man's connected back to his family. So you need to be able to make sure you're able to quantify what you're trying to do. Sometimes it's not as easy as the numbers. You have to show the outcome that that person is going to get as a result of the program. Number 4, identify a target goal of clients. Know specifically who it is you want to target. For example, if you're dealing with let me give an example. If you're giving teenage pregnancy, make sure you target that population and be able to identify who that population is when you do your research. And then identify what information you're going to need to show these indicators. For example, you need to know how many clients is in the target group went through the program. How many reliably undertook their own transportation to work or stayed off of drugs. These are some of the ways that you can show indicators. For example, if you got a program, one of your indicators are, hey, look, these programs used to bus to come to our program. So that's an indicator. Or if it's a person on drugs, you can say, hey, this person is not using drugs. So make sure you identify and show your indicators. And 6, decide how can that information be efficiently and realistically gathered. So make sure you're able to gather that information. You can do it by documentation, observation of program personnel, clients in the program, questionnaires, interviews about the client, perceived benefits from the program, case studies of programs fail and success. You need not do all of the above. You just need to be able to do some of these. And then the final 7, analyze and report the findings. Analyze and interpret information below. Well, actually, I didn't have that section there. But anyway, we're going to, one of the class projects is that you're going to have to create your own outcome model, and you're going to have to follow all 7 of these steps. That's going to be one of the projects that we're going to assign to you later on. But today, we're just going through the what. Okay, so there are 4 levels of evaluations. There are 4 levels of evaluation that can be gathered from clients, including the following: their reactions and feelings. Feelings are often a poor indicators that your service made lasting impact, but nevertheless, it can be 1. 2, learning. You enhance their attitudes, aptitude, perception, or knowledge. 3, you change in skill. You apply the learning to enhance their behavior. Or 4, effectiveness. Improve the performance because of the enhanced behavior. So these are 4 of the things that you can use to show that your evaluation falls into one of these levels of evaluation. Let me ask you a question. If I was trying to show a person to learn about why a person feels bad about themselves, which indicators which one of these levels would I use?
Number 1, reactions and feelings.
Exactly. Now, while that is not scientific, you always want to use that as anecdotal or qualitative information. Now, talking about qualitative information. Quantitative research, I want you to read the first 2 paragraphs. I know you know this, we went over this before, but now we're back because we put it into evaluation section.
Quantitative research is research involving the use of structured questions where the response options have been predetermined and a large number of respondents is involved. By definition, measurement must be objective, quantitative, and statistically valid. Simply put, it's about numbers, objectives, and hard data.
It's about the hard data. Most of us will not do any type of quantitative research because we need to sample large number of people. But we can do the research and find the quantitative research on a particular subject matter. Let's say, for example, teenage pregnancy. Well, we can go to colleges, universities that have done studies. We can go to the health department and different authorities that have done studies on this. And we can use that quantitative data. For example, we might go to research at the University of Tampa, and this is fictitious. It's not what they actually did. I'm just giving that as an example. So they are doing research on teen pregnancy. And you can go to that site, and they will say, well, in 2019, there were over 5,000 teenage pregnancy in the city of Tampa. And then they might say, based on our research, these are the 7 reasons why that exists. So again, quantitative research deals with the hard data, the objective data. Do me a favor and read that last paragraph.
The sample size for a survey is calculated by statisticians using formulas to determine how large a sample size will be needed from a given population in order to achieve findings with an acceptable degree of accuracy. Generally, researchers seek sample sizes which yield findings with at least 95% confidence interval, which means that if you repeat the survey 100 times, 95 times out of 100, you would get the same response, and plus or minus 5%. Point margin error. Many surveys are designed to produce small margin errors.
And we see it all the time when you go to your newspaper or you go online and they come out with a study that was done. For example, one study that has been done is to show what is the psychological effects of racism on African Americans. That would be, in that particular respect, they might talk to 15,000 people in the survey, and they begin to collect that information, and they produce their findings. But quantitative research is important because it gives us the hard facts. And when we're going after money, we need to be able to make an argument. Quantitative research also allows us to research the evidence-based approach, and it allows us to look at best practices from around the country. And so we can include that in our research when we make an argument that we can solve a problem. Also, in that quantitative research, you want to look at lessons learned of programs that didn't work but might have worked. So you will look at those programs in the past and say, hey, if we had tweaked this and added this, it could have been a different story. Okay, let's move on. Now read the first paragraph of this.
Qualitative research. Qualitative research is collecting, analyzing, interpreting data by observing what people do and say, whereas quantitative research refers to counts and measures of things. Qualitative research refers to the meaning, concepts, definitions, characteristics, metaphors, symbols, and descriptions of things. Qualitative research is much more subjective than quantitative research and uses very different methods of collecting information. Many individuals, in-depth interviews, and focus groups. The nature of this type of research is exploratory and open-ended. Small numbers of people are interviewed in depth, and or relatively small number of focus groups are conducted.
Let's hold it right there. So when we talk about qualitative research, remember we talked about quantitative research. When we talk about qualitative research, we want to know what the person thinks. Remember when we did quantitative research, we was looking at the numbers, that type of research stuff that does studies and everything like that. Qualitative research is what the type of research that most nonprofits must conduct on their level, because this is something that a nonprofit can do. As opposed to the qualitative research, we have to go to the professionals and to gather that type of data. So here's an example of qualitative research. We're dealing with teenage pregnancy. We invite 6 females to lunch. 3 females are pregnant. 2 females are thinking about it, and 1 female doesn't have an opinion. They just there. You're going to ask questions. For example, you're going to ask that teenager that's pregnant, had an opportunity to second think what you did, would you? And then you're going to ask that person that's thinking about it, well, why do you want to get pregnant? And then you're going to ask that person that's here, that's to be here, what's your opinion? For example. Anyway, you want to do that. So when you do that, qualitative research. And when you submit your grant, you can say on May the 3rd, 2021, we assembled a focus group that we was able to pull out the following data from individual in the target group that we focus on and trying to bring about a positive result. These are the questions that we asked, and these were the questions that they responded to. Based on this support our finding that we need funding in order to solve the problem. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good. That means that groups, nonprofits can do their own qualitative research themselves. It's the quantitative research, and we're going to do some quantitative research, if not tonight, probably during our next section, to start to look at the quantitative research that's out there on a particular subject, and how do we gather that data related to the quantitative research. Now, let's read this last paragraph here.
Basically, quantitative research is objective. Qualitative is subjective. Quantitative research seeks explanatory laws. Qualitative research aims at an in-depth description. Qualitative research measures what it assumes to be a static reality in hopes of developing universal laws. Qualitative research is an exploration exploration of what is assumed to be dynamic reality. It does not claim that what is discovered in the process is universal and thus replicable. Common differences usually cited between these types of research include.
So this understand in particular how they differ from each other. One is objective. Objective means that, well, we're going to use a scientific method to collect the data necessary to make our argument. The other, which is qualitative, is subjective. It's based on what the person thinks, what the person believes. Let me give you an example of another focus group. And a lot of restaurants do this all the time. They might have a group of people that come together, and they might cook a meal. One meal might be a bland looking meal. Another meal might be a meal that's a little colorful, but it has a lot of ingredients that's not healthy. And the third meal looks good and is healthy. In their focus group, they're going to ask people which is the best. And then they're going to ask them why aren't the other two as good? And that person might say, I taste this, it tastes like cardboard. That person might say, I didn't even taste this because I'm a health person. And then the person might say, I chose the last one because I'm a health person and I want my food to be inviting when I look at it, to be nice and colorful, and those other things that make it appealing. Okay, now, this is what we call the professional level evaluation, outcome evaluation. This is a matrix right here. And let's talk about the different parts of this particular matrix. First is the process objective. This is when you're going to talk about, for example, they say 80 students will be identified and will be mentored and tutored to improve school attendance and one-time promotion and grades K-3. This talks about the process objective. What is the objective of the program? The next column deals with the activities. One of the activities is going to be staff will monitor students' attendance and meet with parents to assure that students are attending school. The next section is called responsible parties. This section right here. Right here, you got to assign who's going to be overseeing this. In this case, it's going to be the director and the staff. The next block is called expected outcome. One of their expected outcome is that at least all 95%, at least 95% of a minimum of 35 children will regularly attend school. Now, the next thing is indicators. How can you prove this? Well, in this section, the way they're going to prove it, they're going to take regularly attending schools to define as not missing more than 9 days of school, or 5% less during the school year. This is how they're going to be able to show what their indicators are. If that student miss less than 9 days in a given cycle, then as far as they're concerned, they've been successful. Why is that important? Because the assumption is that student was missing 10, 15, 20 days. So they want to show that they're having an impact. Now, the next thing after you identify what your indicators measurements are, the next is your data source. How do we know where's the information? In this case, they say information related to the program's success will be done in the form of a weekly report by staff. Again, this is one of their data source. And then finally, it's the time of measurement. This is when you begin to talk about 30 days, 40 days, 50 days, and things of that nature. Any questions related to a logic model?
No.
Excellent. Okay, that being said, let's go to the next big thing. It's called a theory of change. This is what we call an evaluation, a progress evaluation. Read to me the summary of the key points of a theory of change.
A theory of change identifies cause and effect. The three elements of a theory of change: community problem / need, intervention, intended outcome, are supported by data and evidence. Data documenting community need should show scope, significance, and causes.
This particular slide right here was prepared by the Corporation for National and Community Service. They did a PowerPoint presentation. So I got to give them credit for what a theory of change is. I'm using it because it's relevant to our course. Okay, so let's look at what it looks like. The first section is community problem and need. In this case, children reading below 3rd grade. That's their concern. That's the problem. Kids in that neighborhood, they read below 3rd grade. And it might be people that are 9, 10, whatever their age group is, they're reading 3rd grade. They probably should be at 5th or 6th grade. Now you're going to talk about the statistics that you're going to gather to show your information. The next section is, well, what is the intervention that you plan to do? Notice they begin to talk about their individualized tutoring. And you can read all of this at your leisure. I just want to highlight the different matrix in terms of subject. And then the next is the intended outcome that you plan to bring about. It has to be evidence-based. Okay, now, the first component of a theory of change is the community problem or the need. Read to me what you need in order to put together a problem need statement in your theory of change.
Data documenting problem need should answer these 3 questions. Scope, who and how many are directly affected? How severe is this? Significance, what makes this a compelling need? Is it likely to become worse? What will happen if we do nothing? Causes, why does the need exist? How is it perpetrated?
So then at the end of the day, you have to be able to show not only it's a problem, but you have to give the scope. For example, if you're saying, well, the problem is that 15 people in the community don't like jump rope. Well, that's not a good idea. What do I mean by scope? Let me think about that, for example. And they talk about, so the scope would be, for example, that, and the scope here is you're dealing with substance abusers. Here you want to make an argument that 25,000 people that live in Tampa are substance abusers. You want to talk about the scope, the how many, the significance. Why is it important? Well, because these people who are substance abusers, they tend to be, they can't keep a job. They tend to have frequent encounters with the criminal justice system. They have major health problems. And the list can go on and on about why is it significant. You also want to emphasize that it can become worse if you do nothing. Then you have to talk about, why does the need exist? That's where you begin to do your research. That's when you begin to go to best practices and lesson learns. This is when you begin to go to your quantitative research, when you make an argument of why the problem exists. For example, in this case, you could say, based on a study from the Johns Hopkins University, people who are substance abusers because the program set up to help them to resolve that system, that substance abuse is ineffective. So you definitely want to show, why does the need exist and how is it perpetuated. Now, the second part of that matrix in the theory of change is the identifying the intended outcome. This particular group, which is dealing with health, talk about that, but their intended outcome.
Healthy Futures Program examples. Possible outcomes to measure: increased knowledge of what is healthy food, more frequent choice of healthy foods to eat, more frequent involvement in physical activity or exercise, improved physical condition.
So again, this slide right here in the slide, all dealing with theory of change. Theory of change is coming from the Corporation of Community Services. Again, we're only using this for educational purposes. Okay, now the last component, or the middle component of your theory of change, has to do with intervention. Tell me what intervention is.
Intervention describes the design and dosage of your intervention. Service activity. Design: who does what with whom. Dosage: frequency: how many sessions a week. Intensity: length of each session. Duration: how many total weeks of sessions.
Actually, as you can see, you have to be able to talk about the design, who does what with whom, and you have to talk about the doses, the how often. Okay, now read this last slide.
Testing your theory of change. Is your theory of change plausible? Does the logic of the model seem correct? If we do these things, will we get the results we expect? Feasible. Are resources sufficient to implement chosen intervention? Meaningful. Are intended outcomes important? Is the magnitude of expected change worth the effort?
All of these different elements you must use to test your theory of change. So the whole session that we deals with evaluation. The whole objective when we finish up the entire session, the entire program that we're doing, that you're going to be in a perspective to put together your own theory of change, your logic models, your impact models. These are going to be critical related to that section of the grant called evaluation. Now, the reason why evaluation is important to communities, and I teach this to communities, is because a lot of time in poor communities, they have all kind of programs that are supposed to help the poor. Unfortunately, poor communities don't know how to evaluate those programs to make sure that they are effective and that they are achieving the intended outcome. As communities become more educated on how to do evaluation, then they can say to a program, let's say teenage pregnancy program, they can evaluate that program and tell that program, the people that's running that program, that based on our evaluation, your program is ineffective. These are best practice programs that work. That you either do the program like it should be, or we're going to write your funders and let them know that you're not really being effective in our neighborhood. That gives the community a sense of power. See, here's what we know, especially in poor communities. Poor people are big business. Everybody make money on the pain and suffering. There's been so many programs that came down the pipeline that were supposed to be geared towards helping people, when in fact those programs died before they got started, or it was defective in terms of the way the program was actually implemented. That's why it's important that you have that type of power. That's why this particular workshop begins to give you the foundation to be a change agent for your organization and for the community. And as in most cases, you know, I'm going to ask you for 3 questions. What did you learn tonight?
Tonight, I guess I want to say creating a plan, like the program evaluation and those steps and how to measure our evaluations, what tools to use.
I can't find where the Zoom is. What did I hit it now. I can't even find it. Where is
at
Zoom?
The top, enter full screen maybe?
See, I can't even see that. Let me see, because I put mine in, let me see if I can go with it. I put mine in, I minimize it. Now I can't find it. 1 second, let me see if I can find what I did with that. Let's go here. Let's see if I, just give me 1 second. I'm trying to bring up. Okay, 1 second. Boy, technology sometimes can be very effective, and sometimes it can be very frustrating. Let me see if I'm able to get that to come up. If I'm not, I can't even close out of this class. Hold on 1 second. This never happened to me before. Oh man, hold on 1 second. And you said you see, what do you see on your screen right now?
In-depth grant workshop, lesson 4 evaluation section.
Okay. Cause I can't even find my this is impossible, man. How is this happening? Hold on 1 second. Cause I'm looking to close out class, but oh, this is it. Oh, there you go. Now, okay, no, this is not exactly. Let's go here. Let me. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, let me return back to me. Oh, there we go. Look, I apologize, man. Because what had happened was I minimized the floating chart that you see on your screen in order to see the full presentation. But when I did it, I couldn't find where it was at. So wow, man, that was tripping. Hold on 1 second. Let me take this out. All right, let me see. Okay, excellent.